Well, I already felt that Killua was a sleeping giant, but now I feel that Gon is the same thing, and that ultimately this use of Nen is going to awaken the beast.
Hunter x Hunter, Episode 30, Fierce and Ferocious.
Well, hello, my brothers and sisters, and maybe you're now hunters of the Nerd Nation. I don't know. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the awesome and action-filled and explicitly detailed and well-thought-out, well-planned, ultimately and unfortunately on a hiatus, tale of Hunter x Hunter. The last episode saw us with really Gon and Killua, of course, being awakened. You know, their oropiles or whatever they were called. They're kind of like their pores almost being open to Nen. And then Gon, despite you know the warning from Wing and as well as Killua, decided just to go balls deep head first. And get into a fight, obviously, register for a fight, and we left him with him not looking like he's going to do very well against this fella Gido with these spinning tops. So that's where the episode left off, and that's where this one picks up. And honestly, it's nice. It moved real quick. The first half of it was really all about the fight. And he's trying to learn different things on the fly, and he's kind of one of those, I guess you'd say, like a natural-born student, it seems like, of Nen. Because at first he's trying to use his 10 to be able to deflect shots and be able to kind of harden his body to that. But unfortunately, when he does that, he can't go on the offensive. He's trying to figure out a way to dodge these tops. He's getting knocked around all over the place, winds up actually getting knocked out of the ring, and then kind of starts to pick up on things about how the tops actually work. That they're just, he's using all of his, Gido's using all of his Nen, or a good portion of his Nen, to go and keep these things spinning. And they're just bouncing into each other, and they're not really aiming for him. They're just sort of hitting anything that happens to be in their way, right? So there's no discernible pattern, but at the same time, they're not coming right after him, you know? So then he goes and he jumps in the air, and he's going to leap, and he's like, so all I need to do is attack Gido. So he comes up in the air, and it's like, the slow motion thing, he's about to nail him. And then Gido goes and uses this other tornado attack move that he has, where he goes and just spins his whole body, and it's like a defensive as well as an offensive maneuver because it keeps him from getting hit, and then anything that comes near him, Gon in this case, just gets smashed back out of the ring, and before you know it, he's down 9 points to none. He's got no points whatsoever. But then what he winds up doing, which I thought was really cool, is he comes in there, and the whole time Wing is watching, right? And he's sitting there with Zushi. They're watching on TV and everything, and Wing is talking in his head about what he's got to do. You know, he's got to learn the Hatsu. He's got to be able to do that to use offensive moves on him. And he's explaining about how that's just next level. I mean, it would take him 5 years or something like that to master this, or to even learn it, to be able to go and be a good opponent to fight against somebody like Gido, to actually have a fighting chance, I guess I should say. Gon's always a good opponent because the kid's got heart, he's got balls. But anyway, it's neat because then he winds up going and using, unbeknownst to him, he winds up concentrating, dropping his 10, right? And Killua's freaking out. Oh, what are you doing? You know. But he drops his 10, his defenses or whatever, which, I mean, he still can get hit by the tops when he has the 10 on, but it doesn't hurt him nearly as much as if it would, you know, if he drops it like he did. But then he goes and he starts using Zetsu, and that's where you can actually conceal your presence. And also, you know, Wing was explaining that if you know how to be able to build up a great amount of aura in a short amount of time, that's the thing that he was saying that would take 5 years to master or something. But anyway, nonetheless, he winds up going and breaking out and using this Zetsu, and he basically becomes invisible, right? And he becomes invisible, and he can almost like sense and feel the tops, and as they're coming at him, he's able to just kind of like artfully dodge them. And he's like almost invisible to the naked eye because he actually closes up those aura piles, those pores, you know, that let the aura seep from and emanate. And then we kind of wind up leaving him hanging at the end of the at the end of the mat. Well, at the end of the little mid, you know, episode break that they have, right? It kind of shows Hisoka, he's watching, you know, in the crowd, and he's just sort of creepy and shit, touches the shoulder, and again, probably just, you know, is picturing, you know, children or whatever it is that he likes to do. He just reminds me of like that creepy clown, you know, that you just don't want at your birthday party, you know. But anyway, we wind up going, and then, you know, the break happens, the couple-second break, and then as we come out of that, Gon is... Killua's going, yeah, as we thought, 4 fractures, 12 this, 3 broken ribs, and I'm like, oh god, here we go. Kind of like in the final phase of Hunter x Hunter, the exam, you know, the Hunter exam. Hunter x hunter, but the hunter exam, when, you know, all of a sudden we were just, you know, everything's over, Goins wakes up and he's, you know, he's got the busted arm. This is a similar type of circumstance. He's supposed to be laid up for 4 months because all the damage he took. He clearly lost. And Killua is pissed. I mean, he's chastising him for it, and he says, you know, you shouldn't have done that. You could have gotten yourself killed. You should have waited, you know. And Goin's just like, oh yeah, I know, but you know, I'm sorry, but you know, I just wanted to. I just felt like fighting. So then Wing comes in, right? And Wing comes up to him, and he's just like, I'm sorry. And Wing's just like, just bitch slaps Goin. And he's just like, I don't care for your apology. He says the exact same thing that Killua says, you know. And then he goes and he says, how long before you recover, you know? And Killua goes and covers for Goin's ass and says, oh, they said 2 months he'd be up and ready to go. Now remember, he's got to fight again within 90 days, as far as I know, to stay in the Heavens Arena. Not that that's their ultimate end goal, but Hisoka's here, and the goal for Goin, at least in the short term, is to win a match so he can fight against Hisoka and punch him in the face. That's kind of his short-term goal that we're looking at here, hopefully in the next 10 episodes, something like that. That's what I'm thinking. But anyway, we wind up getting... So Wing, you know, eventually forgives him and what have you, and he goes outside, has a little talk with Killua, and kind of asks him what their goals are and everything. And Killua's like, you know, we're just kind of hanging out here, going to earn some money, trying to get our skills, and Gon wants to fight this dude Hisoka, you know. I know a lot of people in the 200s are trying to get to the champion level and everything else, but we don't really care for that. At least I don't, you know. So there's that exchange between them, but then what I liked is, and before it wound up going into the last few minutes of the episode, which were very good too, because we check in on Kurapika, and we haven't seen him in a while, several episodes obviously now, yeah, because of the Heavens Arena that's just been focusing on Gon and Killua. Before we get to that though, we get Wing, and he's back, you know, meditating, practicing his ten, you know, or using his nen, what have you, and he's with Zushi, and he's sitting there and he's like thinking to himself, he's like, man. He's like, Master, I think I may have awakened something. Like, I may have awakened, like, a force, like an unstoppable force, you know? He realizes, I think, that Gon and Killua, or both, one or the other, have this natural potential, but it's this potential to be, you know, like, godlike in their power, in their use of Nen. So you almost, I don't know if it's almost like he's kind of remiss about it, you know? Like, I awakened the beast, now I don't know if I'll be able to control it. But the bottom line is that, you know, he forbids Killua, of course, you know, he forbade Killua to fight for the next couple of months while he's healing and everything like that, you know. But then we go and we're taken to Kurapika, or Kurapika, or whatever you want to call him. And he's looking for some work, you know, some bounty hunter-like work, I guess, I'm assuming, you know, something that would, you know, and the person there at the desk is like, no, you can't, sorry, you know, you have to, and he's like, but I have a hunter's license, you know, it doesn't matter. You still haven't finished the hunter exam, right? And what are you talking about, right? And this all goes back to the Nen, which is really cool. This is like the center focal point now of this series, at least at this point, because then he goes in, and that secretary person goes and like projects this thing with, you know, with his aura with Nen, and he's like, "Can you see that?" Kurapika's like, "No, well, see what?" You know? It's like, yeah, then you can't come back then until you've been awakened. So that's really what it is that the hunter exam itself, they put you through all these rigorous trials and things like that. And I'm sure that there's some, like a Hisoka or maybe a Lume, that have that potential, that ability of Nen, you know. And even Killua said when he was talking to Wing, you know, he said, listen, he goes, whether you want to teach us or not, we would have eventually figured it out, considering Hisoka and my brother know it. So it's not like it's common knowledge, but it's knowledge we would have eventually come across and run into. So I like how that was set up. But anyway, so Kurapika is completely, you know, just floored. Like, I have no idea why. This is bullshit. And just kind of walks out like, what the hell? But like I said, we see that to actually fully become a hunter, you have to have that knowledge. You have to have that ability awakened with you. You have to have those aura piles or what have you, whatever those pores open, and you have to have some kind of control over it, or mastery at least over this Nen. And I really like that. I like how it's explained. So anyway, he winds up going and brushing by somebody on the way out, and doesn't even really notice, you know, doesn't even notice this dude, this kind of unshaven looking dude, you know. And then later on is walking through the forest, because that's apparently what you do when you're not in town, just walk out in the woods, and all of a sudden, like, senses there's something coming at him and dodges like this projectile, like a bullet, like in slow motion at the last second. It's like, oh, and this thing hits the tree behind it, and just, like, you know, takes out like a head-sized hole in the tree, you know. And the dude that Kurapika brushed into or brushed past earlier, you know, shows up and is like, hey, boom, he's got his hunter exam. You didn't even realize that I lifted your hunter license from you, you know? And so Kurapika, just always angry and wanting to fight first. You know, okay, let's fight, you know? And that type of thing. And then you go and you see, it takes you to the end of the episode, and it's later on, it's in the rain, and he's just sitting there on his knees, and has obviously been beaten very handily by this other person. You know, I don't know who this guy is, this mysterious stranger. And he's still kind of sitting there, and he's like, all right, goes and throws him the license bag. He's like, listen, I'll be your teacher. I'll be your trainer. So whoever this is, whether he is a hunter, whether he's a former hunter, whether he's just a good Samaritan, or he's just somebody who's like, hey, whatever, Kurapika kind of looks like a girl, and maybe he thinks he's going to get some. I don't know. But ultimately, it's cool because we know that to become a full-fledged hunter and to really pass that hunter exam, you have to go and kind of have some on-the-job training. That's how I took it. So really looking forward to the next one, and just can't wait to see what's going to happen. And like I said, it always throws you for a curve with things, because I really thought that Gon was probably going to lose that first match in the 200s, but I was hoping he was going to make it, he was going to make it a little bit of a match, that there was going to be a challenge, he was going to learn some things, which he did, obviously with the Zetsu and everything else. He didn't even know he was doing it, but I kind of hoped that it would be a little bit more of an actual fight, not so one-sided, and that he wind up losing, but then going and learning some things from it, training, and then coming back. And instead, he's down and out for a month or two, at least. But very cool stuff. My episode question for you, though, brothers and sisters, is, I guess, what are your thoughts on the hunter exam finishing and you getting your hunter's license, but it really not being finished? Having to kind of get that. We've seen now in a couple different cases where you really, to kind of graduate fully, or to fully become a hunter, you have to learn at least the basics of that nen and kind of be awakened to it. So what are your thoughts on that? Let me know in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We'll look forward to catching all of you in the next Fun Nation.
Remember to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and even my other channel.